Hi, and welcome to a brand new video of the Target Individual Experience, the Target Individual Program. A lot has happened. I did a video previously on my phone and kind of wanted to follow up that in the uh, format that I normally use, which is this format. And besides, when I did the video, for some reason the orientation was all screwed up. So there goes that. So I'm going to rehash a lot of stuff that I talked about in the previous video. Okay. Um, but just speaking of my target in general, still goes on. It is now heavily. Uh, it is trying to find the right words here. The frequency has been quite heavy, I should say. Um, the psychological, the psyops, along with the directed energy, the remote neural monitoring, has been constant. The administrative manipulation, and I'll talk about that uh, in a minute or so. But just to give a recap, um, so again, being targeted at my college, New York College of Technology, downtown Brooklyn. The professors, the students who target me. Um, I have a class, circuit analysis class, and I have a lab right after on Tuesdays. And within those two classes, this is EMT 1150, which is circuit analysis, and then there's a lab right after. The constant, psychological harassment from the students as well as the professor. And so, yesterday, so this Wednesday, yesterday when I had that class, they were sending me subliminal message about using uh, two of the students in my class, along with the professor, the two who I caught on video, basically running the psyops on me. Okay, and one of them is my lab partner, young kid. They all being manipulated, but it doesn't matter to me. My job is to expose it, to show what's being done, to explain my interpretation of it, whether it's right or wrong, but to show the actions that's being done. And I know I'm right. I know I am about 85 to 90% right in terms of explaining what is being done to me, as well as others in this program. Okay? And so, yeah. And then also the use of Pam, to send me a subliminal message, to basically keep me here at her place during the week to help her out with the kids. And then, like in the morning, she'll run a psyops program in which to try to, how should I say, uh, to make me feel calm and secure. And then at night, when we're going to bed, is when she engaged in the palm fixation drill, as well as also with the police. For example, 'cause I've been trying to, get her to, understand what's going on, right? And to sure say, look, I still love you. I'm willing to work this thing through. And, if you're willing, I'm willing. We'll take things slowly. That's fine. Not a problem. But I think maybe it's a waste of time, regardless of how I feel. I think it's a waste of time because I think it's gotten to the point where, and I told her this, we had a discussion the last time that I felt like she doesn't respect me as a human being. Because if you respect somebody as a human being, you wouldn't engage in these type of psychological programming, right, or psychological harassment, because you're basically trying to say like I'm a dog and you're going to train me how you want to train me to benefit you, where I'm trying to do things to benefit us and our children. Okay, so that's my mentality, but I'm not sure about her mentality. And listen, we're not together. She made that clear, but yet, um, she wants me to be here. She doesn't want to ask me per se, but she'll say things offhand. Like if I want to go home, and she's like, "Why you go home?" And such stuff like that. And I'll say to her, "Well, do you want me to stay?" And she's like, "You can stay if you want to." But yet, if I leave, she gets mad, right, and try to hold it against me, right, for leaving. Okay. But listen, I know she needs help with the kids, and I'm trying not to put her and my children in a situation where it becomes difficult for them. Because if I'm not here, the kids are late for school every morning. Last weekend we had a parents teacher conference, and the parents just basically said, "Hey, you guys have to get the kids here on time." Now, when I'm here, I have school in the morning. So what I do, I get up early, I iron the kids' clothes, I make their breakfast, okay, and then I leave. I wake them up, and they're eating breakfast. I wake them up at 7 o'clock. Maybe once or twice. They may get up. I'm gonna wake them up after 7 or so. But when I leave, like around whether it be 7 o'clock or 7:30, they're eating breakfast, or they just finished eating breakfast if I leave at 8:30, and they're on the way to brush their teeth, and all they have to do is put on their clothes. But due to with circumstances with her, they always get to school late. So the teacher said, "Listen, these kids are going to have a bad example on their attendance records." And we're in a class, and she's telling the teacher that it's Alyssa's fault. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, I know you're not trying to blame Alyssa. Alyssa's 6 years old. Okay? If I can, like today, since I dropped my calculus class, you hear the helicopter? Since I dropped my calculus class, I get up, and I take the kids, and we're there on time. We're there on time. We might be, like, this morning we left at 8:18, and it only takes us less than 5 minutes to get to the school, all right? Because their school is not far. But they're not late, because at that time, the students are lining up to go into class, right? But with her, the school kids are always late, almost daily, if I am not here to get up and take them to school, right? And so she's trying to blame Alyssa as the teacher's talking. And, when we left and we got home, I said to her, "Listen, don't do that. Don't blame Alyssa for you getting to school, for you taking them to school late. She's 6 years old. You're the parent. You're the adult. How are you going to put the responsibility of which you're supposed to do onto and blame your 6-year-old daughter?" And I just thought that was really bad. So I had to, speak to her about it, And it's like, yes, just accept your responsibility. Y'all not late because of her. Because if I can get them to school on time, 99% of the time, when I take them to school, they're on school on time. So can you. You can do it. But I tell her, you have to figure a way out. I try to give her, advice, whether she wants to take it or not. That's it. But when I gotta, and recently I've been leaving late and getting to school late because I've been staying back a little to help her with the kids to try to get them to school on time, and they're still getting to school late after I leave. Okay, so, but again, a lot of it also has to do with the targeting, the directed energy weapons, the use of microwave and radio wave frequency to influence the human mind. But people don't want to believe. They don't want to understand. But this is what's going on. And me being a target and being implanted with a microchip, and the perpetrators of this crime trying to silence me, okay, they will do anything to silence me. And so what I have here, I have a couple of things that I'm going to show off. Some of them I've, explained already. such as Coercive Persuasion Program, and this is the new version of what it is I'm going to talk about. Okay, so Coercive Persuasion Programming is a psychological programming being run by the U.S. government. It involves the U.S. government, state government, local government, uh, security agencies, federal law enforcement, local and state law enforcement. Okay, and I'm going to talk about this. All right, so we're talking about coercive mind control tactics. All right, and you guys can go to psychologicalharassment.com to read up about it. Now, let's talk about the FBI Consensual program, which I've talked about in the past. Okay, and this comes from allthat'sinteresting.com. Over the next decade and a half, local, state, and federal agents working under the Consensual rubric would illegally spy on civil rights leaders, fabricate evidence of crime, stage false flag attacks, and incite riot to show the world just how dangerous the communists supposedly were to so-called civil society. As early as World War II, President Franklin Roosevelt had relied on J. Edgar Hoover's relaxed attitudes towards the Constitution to keep tabs on perceived war resistors and interests seen as not sufficiently patriotic. These operations, which were mostly illegal wiretaps and occasional burglaries by special agents of the FBI, also helped Roosevelt keep an eye on his political enemies. After the war, President Harry Truman mostly continued the domestic spying program, now under the banner of national security. And this is the same thing that they're using now, under the banner of national security and also public safety. Okay? With the public embarrassment of the Joe McCarthy hearing in Congress, the program receded into the background. In 1956, Director Hoover had reorganized the dozens of operations on the federal level, and nobody knows how many by local police and sheriffs, into COINTELPRO. Senior Specialist Agent William Sullivan ran the program out of Langley, Virginia, with contacts all over the country. The FBI first target were the extreme political groups, notably the CPUSA and the Ku Klux Klan. Now, when they say this, it's a different context as opposed to the Black Panther Party and the Black civil rights leaders, the Hispanic civil rights leaders and groups, La Raza, and other ethnic groups. Okay, because we all know that a lot of these individuals from the Ku Klux Klan are federal agents, law enforcement agents, or police, and they're in the military, and they're in all aspect of the government: security, law enforcement, federal, state, and local police office. Okay, so starting around 1956, two members, the so-called Solar Brothers, reestablished the link and started making annual trips to Moscow to get money and instructions. These men were taking part in what the KGB called active measures to spread propaganda and demoralize U.S. citizens. They were also double agent working for the FBI. The names and proposed communists that these agents gave to COINTELPRO then led to the dramatic expansion of the surveillance of civil rights leaders, including Dr. Martin Luther King. So here is a letter, right? This is one of the letters from an unknown person sent to Martin Luther King Jr. urging him to kill himself. And this is what they've been doing to me also. Not in terms of sending me letters, but using the silent sound spectrum technology to try to tell me to commit suicide. Right? In view of your low-grade, abnormal personal behavior, I will not dignify your name with either a Mr. or a Reverend or King, such as King Henry VIII, and his countless acts of adultery and immoral conduct lower than that of a beast. King, look into your heart. You know you are a complete fraud and a great liability to all of us Negroes. White Okay, let's see. Which okay, what it says? Can't pronounce this. Is rich? You're supposed to be rich. I'm sure they would. They didn't. They don't have one at this time that is anywhere near your equal. You are no clergyman, and you know it. I repeat, you could not believe in God and act as you do. Clearly, you don't believe in any personal moral principle. So here is a man who's fighting for the civil rights, who's preaching love and togetherness. And then this is how they, this is what they do, right? It's part of what they do, okay? And again, and the use of sex and and the manipulation of people around you to manipulate your sexual behavior. This is and the sexual behavior of the people around you. This is all of what they do. This is not all of it, but this is a huge part of what they do in order to entrap, in order to blackmail, in order to get you to stand down or give up your fight for whatever it is that you're fighting for, right? All right, so I'm not going to go read into this, but you guys can read part of this letter yourself. I mean, it is kind of ridiculous, right? But that's what happened, and it continues to happen too. Don't think it doesn't. There's a lot of people out there who are silent because they've been entrapped and they've been, manipulated, right, and have become silent. I'm not one of those people. Okay. So you guys can read up on this. I'm not getting into more of it, but I just want to go through a history of this stuff and to show people that look, it is happening now. Okay. Okay, so this is a explanation of the Stasi decomposition program known as Zutzazun. Okay, and so decomposition, Ministry of State Security. Decomposition was a covert method of the Ministry of State Security, Stasi's, of the GDR to combat an alleged and actual political opponent. The Stasi used the decomposition before, while, after, and instead of an arrest of of the targeted person. As a repressive prosecution practice, it contained extensive covert control and manipulation functions to the family and personal relationships. In terms, operative psychology was being taught at the law school of the Stasi Potsdam Oak, where you could acquire a doctoral degree in it. Political and social conditions. Since the early 1970s, the Stasi, on the basis of changed condition of class struggle, sanctioned and reinforced their effort for oppositional behavior without the use of criminal law. This was caused by the quest for internal recognition of the GDR and the German convergence from the late 1960s. Thus, the GDR had both in basic agreement with the FRG and with membership of the UN Charter and the signing of the CSCE Final Act to respect the human rights, express its intention or obligation. Since the letter was also published in the New Germany, its implementation was an improvement, particularly in relation to the adopted exit rule. Even for domestic political debate, moreover, the communist regime tried the number of political prisoners instead to reduce the concession promised by the repressive practice below to compensate the threshold of arrest and conviction. Okay, conceptual origin and definition. The origin and use of the words come from the military parlance under decomposition, understood as a strategic measure of the psychological warfare with psychological resource to lower the morale of enemy soldiers. In the army, there was a time of National Socialism, specifically the concept of undermine the war effort, but this was an entirely different meaning. The MFS defined the aims and method of decomposition as followed. The decomposition is the method to deal effectively with the Stasi repressive, subversive activity. With the decomposition by various political and operational activities impact on hostile negative persons, particularly hostile to their negative attitudes or belief taken in such a way that they are shaken and changed gradually, or contradictions and differences between hostile negative forces caused, exploited, or intensified. The aim of decomposition is the fragmentation, paralysis, disorganization, and isolation of hostile negative forces, thereby providing a differential political ideological recovery. Ministry of State Security, Dictionary of Political Operative Work, keyword decomposition, in the secret of undermining Directive Number 176 states in addition, measures of decomposition are the elicitation and the exploitation to gain such and address inconsistencies or differences between hostile and negative force by which they are fragmented, cripple, disorganize, and isolate, and their hostile and negative action include their effects will thus be reduced, substantially reduced, or eliminated altogether. Directive number 176 to the development process of machining operation from 1. Decomposition in process. In practice, the decomposition was a purely psychological instrument of repression, which the scientific evident operative psychology was deliberately used to undermine the self-confidence and self-esteem of a person, create fear, panic, confusion, causing a loss of love and security, and should stir up disappointment. They should be caused by political opponent and life crisis, so that they psychologically unsettled and burdened, so the sacrifice of time and energy for anti-state activities was taken. The Stasis who were behind the action should not have to be seen. The writer Jürgen Fuchs spoke so well of psychosocial crime and an attack on the soul of the people. Although already allowed in the late 1950s to demonstrate methods of decomposition, the decomposition method was refined in the mid-1970s and 1970s, primarily in the scientific applied and 1980s. Proven applicable form of degradation, the Directive 176 is called, among other things, systematic discrediting of public reputation. The reputation and prestige on the basis interconnect true, variable, and discrediting, and false, credible, non-rebuttal, and thus also discredited information, systemic organization of personal and societal failure to undermine the confidence of individuals, generating doubt the personal perspective, creating mistrust and mutual suspicion within group, local and temporal, prevent or limit the mutual relations of the members of a group, for example, by assigning locals to remote job. Directive number 176 to the development process of machining operating from 1976 among the decomposition technique also open, hidden or fake spine, letter or telephone control to the enemy of the people work, damaging private property, temperament vehicles to the poisoning of food, incorrect medical treatment, and strategically targeted and coercion of suicide, which is what lately they've been trying to do to me. It is controversial whether the Stasi began the X-rays at political opponent held caused long-term damage. And again, the use of directed energy weapons, right? So even then they were using X-rays, and this is, I think, what they do to me here in the home, and how they monitor me in the home, because we all know that the NYPD has an X-ray vehicle, right? It's a van. They probably have more than one of them. Not also that too, but using infrared X-ray, devices to view into a person's home. Okay. X-ray can help long-term damage. Thus, with Rudolf Barthel and Gurov Panache dead, only 2 to 3 years apart, about the same time, incarcerated prominent East German dissidents Jürgen Fuchs died of rare cancer. And I talked about this lately. I've said this before. They will use the license plates now with the letter GEA, right? With it. Now, I had an aunt. Her name was Jean, and she died of cancer. So lately, they've been using vehicles with that word in there, you know, and this is what they do. So this is not new. This is not new at all. Okay, so target groups for measures and decomposition. There exists no homogeneous group of decomposition measures, as the political underground activities more sophisticated and diverse in appearance, when in, and thus from the perspective of the MFS, a differentiated manner of fighting it was necessary nevertheless. The Stasi called as the main target group combination of immigration, application, hostile group critical artists, reactionary clerical circles, religious opposition groups, groups of youth, and their supporters, human rights and refugee assistance organization went out and expatriate opposition. Among the most prominent victims of decomposition measure, Jürgen Fuchs, Jurov Panache, Rudolf Baffel, Wolf Berman, and Robert Haveman and Rainer Eppelman. Okay, so I'm not going to get into a lot of this stuff, but I'm going to talk about this stuff in terms of the use of people to destroy your relationship, the use of their friends, other family members to, put ideas into their mind to change that person view of you from a positive light to a negative light. Okay, and this is what's been going on with me and Pam for years, and this is what they've been doing, and this is what I've been trying to fight it, to get her to understand that, look, this is what these people are doing. Okay, a lot of them may not know what they're doing, but a lot of them do know what they're doing, and you have to be mindful of that, because they will always send me subliminal message in terms of when they've used someone to approach her and that she's talking to, what have you, and they will let me know this, because again, this is the psychopathic nature of their personality, because they want you to know, and so that you can have some type of emotional outburst. But I don't. I just talk to her. I said, listen, I've been getting these subliminal message about such and such. If that's the case, and she'll, I don't know if she's telling me the truth or not, but she'll give me an answer, and I just say, listen, I just gotta need to let you know, okay, just so you can be careful and be mindful, okay. So, okay, let's move on. All right. So now again, we go back to actually, which is what I wanted to do. Let's go here. All right, so let's go through which is the new version of this, okay, which is the target individual program, what we call it, okay. But the protocol for this today, all right, let me so the basic protocol, right? There is a basic protocol that they begin. Oh, where am I? Kind of shoot. Okay, here we go. There is a basic protocol that they begin with, which is consistent in all NATO nations. It starts with the surveillance of TIs to obtain information that is used for the attacks. This is done so their personality traits can be cataloged. There is a basic protocol that the perpetrators begin with, states McKinney, but the TI contributes to the modification. After they are singled out for primary stages of harassment, gang stalking ensues, which McKinney described as part of a softening up process. Then directed energy weapons, DEW, are introduced. The DEW attacks gradually increase to extreme condition. This format have been seen consistently in many countries. Dr. Munzet speaks of basically the same pattern, which he described as a dual strategy used by the East German Stasi. This includes attacking the person with directed energy weapons while running psychological warfare to portray them as insane. It is usually the same process, he announced, but with individual variations. This protocol includes three elements. This protocol includes elements of neurolinguistic programming, which I've talked about a lot, NLP, dark NLP, which is a type of mind control used by behavioralists to cause change. NLP will be covered in more detail. Some of the tactics below have been called street theater or stage events. They are planned harassment skits such as blocking or swarming. They also include informant who surround the targets and have conversation intended to be overheard which contains information about the TI personal life, such as that was obtained from surveillance. Now, recently, Monday, I had an appointment to go to the IMA, which is the Social Security Disability Agencies downtown Brooklyn on Gerolamo, right? Gerolamo on Court Street. And so my appointment was for 12:30 and 1:30. I had to get two tests, a psychology test, and to get X-ray done on my back. Now I've done these tests before. Okay. So I get there at 12 o'clock, fill out the information, and I'm waiting. Now there were people there ahead of me, but not so much. And then the people came in afterwards. Do you know that I was the next to last person to be seen for my X-ray? I was in there till after 5 o'clock, right? Which is ridiculous. I was there from 12 o'clock. On top of that, they were taking a sweet time, to call me to, and then not also that too, but the people in the front had brought in my paperwork to the back from since 12:30. 12:30. Yet I was seen by the psychiatrist about going on 3. And then after that, I had to wait an hour to see the doctor. And when the doctor was examining me, based on my chart, she was like, stand up, put your hands up. And she's like, bend over and touch your toes. And I look at her and I'm like, lady, are you crazy? I told her straight away, I said, I can't do that. Are you trying to get me to hurt my back? You know what I'm saying? And so I told her I couldn't do it. So she said, walk on your tippy toe. I couldn't walk straight on my tippy toe because my balance, because of my back issue. So, I couldn't do it. And then she's like, walk on your heels, which I did. I was a little wobbly, but hey. Then she says, okay, get on the bench, whatever. And then she's like, bend your knee and twist your leg to the side. And I had, these things I have to do very slowly because of my back. And then she takes her hands and she tries to basically yank my knees to the side. I said, hold up. I'm like, listen, you don't do that. Don't do that. Okay? I said, let me do it because you're going to hurt my back and I have to get home. All right? And I have to go pick up my kids. So if you hurt my back, okay, that means that if I'm not able to make it home, are you going to pick up my kids for me? Okay? All right. So then she tried to do it again. And I said, listen, I told you before, please do not do that. Allow me to do it. Okay? And so I did that and what have you. Then, I'm waiting. Then the X-ray lady came and she called my name and I'm like, here. And she's like, I've been calling you. I said, listen, miss, I have not heard you. On top of that, no one came back to tell me that you were calling me. On top of that, I had to see the doctor. I said, I've been here since 12 o'clock. It is now going on 5 o'clock. And now, you know what I'm saying? But again, this is administrative abuse. And if they do this to me in every facet, whether it be to the school, whether it be when I was going to court for custody of my son, child support, I was always the one. I would, no lie. I go in with my other son at the time. His mother will come out within 5 minutes. The bailiff or whoever will come out. They'll give her paperwork, and I will say, well, what about mine? And they're like, well, you have to wait in yours. And there's no lie. I'm there 8:30 in the morning, and I wouldn't leave there until after 5 o'clock the entire day. So now I have to go to work. Okay, now I have to work late, leave work at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, get home, sleep, get up at 8 o'clock to be to work for 10. I think I was working at the time. Okay, so this is what they do. They continue to do. And so when they did that to me Monday, now all I had to eat was a bagel and cream cheese in the morning. So I didn't eat anything all day. So I was tired, hungry, weak, And I got to the house. I had a massive headache. I woke up the next day, went to school. I had a massive headache, and I was so tired. But this is the stuff that they do, right? And also, while I was waiting, after I came out of the being X-rayed, now they're going to use a Hispanic woman now to engage in a conversation with me. So I'm like, okay, I'll indulge it. You know what I'm saying? I want to see if she was going to get personal. You know what I'm saying? So I kept it very general, and because I already know their tactics, and then I left. Okay. Then the next day, okay, took the bus. I was talking to Pam on the phone, and then the fire trucks came, and I couldn't record the shit because I was on the phone, so I couldn't record it. And I was like, damn. Went to school, and again, then they were using the students in my class, like I said, and the professor to send me subliminal message, okay, to try to prevent me from talking about, what was going on. Also, let me backtrack. When I was doing the psych eval, the psychiatrist who was doing the psych eval was targeting me, sending me, like the middle finger, making his hands like a gun. I believe his name was, I have written his name down. I was trying to remember it. I think his name was Dr. Miller. Okay? Because I had looked at the paperwork. It's like, yeah, okay, I got to remember this name. So I was like, I got to keep it in my mind, right? So it's Dr. Miller, right? He was the one. Then, when the doctor called me, and this was like about an hour after seeing him, the other doctor called me. He comes out of his office, stands up in the hallway to make sure that I can see him, right? And then so again, the threats of using these people, these professional, right, to somehow send me threats or what have you, or try to label me when I talk about what was happening. Because when I was in his office doing the eval, he kept doing this. This is what he was doing. Okay, let me go back and. As he was asking me a question, he was going like this. Okay? But this is what these people do. And so, again, this is what I have to expose, right? To try to get me to not talk about my targeting. And so, also, when I started talking about it, because it was just like, it was going back and forth. So, I was just like, okay, man, whatever. And then I left out of there, and then they started with the palm fixation drill, because every time I talk about my targeting, they'll do the palm fixation drill heavily. Okay, and then Pam started doing it, right? And so again, using Pam to send me some threat, like if I keep talking about it, we're not even gonna have any relationship, which is fine. If that's the case, then that's what it'll be. But I will not shut up about my targeting, about anyone that's running a psychological torture campaign, that's hitting me with directed energy weapons, that have illegally microchipped me, and you want me to be silent about it. That's not going to happen. That will never happen. I don't care if you take away my disability, you take away my kids, what have you. I will find the means, the way to expose every damn thing that you have done to me. Okay? Believe that. If I have to stand on the street corner, okay, every damn day, right, shouting, yelling at the top of my lungs the shit that these people are doing, that's what I'll do. Okay? So, let's move on. So, this is not a complete list of tactics, but it includes some of the more common ones reported. Some of these methods will sound insane because they're deliberately designed to make someone appear as though they're suffering from a mental disorder. They were created by experts in the behavioral science. In addition, people may be emotionally drained and unable to properly identify or explain what's happening to them. These are psychological warfare tactics which are intended to make the individual suffer a nervous breakdown, which happened to me. So again, I can attest to these things because I've experienced these things, and this is why I'm talking about it, okay? Because I know what it's like. I've been through it. I'm still going through it. The use of directed energy weapons to microwave and manipulate my children, to using other kids to bully my children to try to silence me. Okay? This is what they're doing. So recently, this girl knocked my son in the face, broke his glasses, left a huge bruise underneath his eyes, right? And since I couldn't pick him up on Monday, and the reason also why they did what they did to me on Monday by keeping me there, because I was supposed to go pick up my kids after school and speak to the principal and the assistant principal about the continued bullying of my son. And then on top of that, one of these kids punched my daughter in the stomach. And hear the sirens. You guys should get used to that by now, right? So, let's move on. So, the mental health system is apparently being used worldwide to discredit targeted people who complain. According to the book Journey into Madness, the true story of secret CIA mind control and medical abuse by Gordon Thomas. Countries around the world, including the US, have used doctors to help abuse and discredit people, often for political reason. Now, not also that, but my brother, who is a TI, for a long time he's been going to the doctor, the hospital, and they've been telling him everything is fine. Everything is fine. And, it got to the point where I was like, because he was complaining to me a lot about the symptoms that he was having. I said, Neil, I've told you this before. Don't just go to one hospital. Go to 3 and 4. Go to 5, 6. Go out of your way to go to another hospital. And when he started doing that, one of the hospitals that he went to, the doctor told him that he had, I don't know if it's congenital heart disease, which is known as broken heart disease. But he had that. And he was like, well, I've been going to these hospitals over and over for the past 2 years, tell them about what's going on with me. They tell me my EKG is fine, my heart is fine, and the doctor was like, well, I don't know what to tell you, but you're not fine. Okay, so this is what they do to cover up the crimes, to cover up the health and psychological damage that they've done to us as TIs, right? And then trying to cover it up because they don't want to bear no responsibility for what they've done to us. Okay, unbelievable, right? So it is also a documented fact that there are collaboration between doctors and the military when experiments were carried out in prisons, hospitals, and universities on unwitting people in North America. McKinney states that medical doctors, as well as psychiatrists and psychologists, appear to be providing cover for this program. This is similar to what was done in Russia, where enemies of the dictatorship would be thrown into mental institution and drugged into submission. The APA refusal to acknowledge the impact of terrorism upon the human psyche, declared McKinney, raises serious questions about the validity of psychiatry as a profession in this country, not to mention the APA's ethical intent in the long run. We know about the APA, right? Them working with the CIA to change the definition of torture to allow the CIA and the military to torture individuals, okay? And make it, what's the word I'm looking for here? Acceptable, and to make it lawful, right? And so that it wouldn't be a war crime, okay? So come on. All right, so anyway, let me move on here because there's other things that I want to talk about that is written here that talks about how the use of this program to neuter people, to psychologically castrate them, right? And if they can't do it, they will spread rumors to the opposite sex or the same sex, whatever your sexual preference is, to have people not engage with you in a romantic way, to break up your marriage, to break up your relationship, right? Because to isolate you and to label you so that you're psychologically castrated, right? Or neutered, okay? So this shit is all documented. This is nothing new. Okay, so yeah. So again, it's ridiculous, but this is what's happening. Okay? Throughout history, there have been these programs. Okay, so I don't know why people don't believe us when we say that these programs exist and we're a victim of these programs. I don't get it. On top of that, I can understand in terms of with Pam, in terms of them threatening my kids because they know that they can't affect me by threatening my kids, because I'm still going to continue to expose it, which you see I'm doing. I'm still continue to do my video, which you see I'm doing, right? So they know that they can affect me. So what they have done is went to her. They went to her, manipulated her to the point where she's engaging, whether it be through the directed energy weapons, right? The silence on spectrum, or whether she's knowingly engaging in it. Again, to me, that's like, 70-30. Like, at times I think mostly she knows, and the other time I think she's being influenced. And I know this, right? Because also my children are being influenced, because they were using technology to influence my children against me. And I know my kids won't do something like this purposely. So that's why I don't really engage with Pam in terms of accusing her of these things anymore. Right now, like I said, I'm trying to not ignore it, but I'm trying to kind of normalize our relationship to where we're not constantly arguing, not constantly fighting over me accusing her of targeting me. So I stopped doing that, okay? And just put more of my emotions into making things better, right? Trying to make things better between us so that, we can be better to each other and to our children, right? And so that's what I do. So I'm more open, I'm more communicable with her now more than ever, right? And, there's a saying, love conquers all, right? Which that's not true. Love don't conquer all. Not even money conquers all, okay? But, I think if you show somebody that you're committed to them, and then they are continuously lying to you, not telling you the truth, like I said to her, I said, listen, I'm trying not to give up on you. I know how it is for black men and black women, particularly, with use of this program, destroying relationships, destroying family, breaking black families apart and break relationships apart. And it's directly related to this program. Okay? And so I'm trying to let her understand this, bring her into the awareness, but she doesn't want to come into the awareness. She still wants to be oblivious, which is fine. I'm like, okay, hopefully one day, she'll come into the awareness of this and understand that no matter what these people tell her, or they're not going to target my kids, they're still going to target my kids. Because as you can see, my kids are still being bullied. Okay? Punching my daughter in the stomach, hitting my son in the face, breaking his glasses. Okay? And she's been doing exactly what they've been saying. Because, to give you an example, last night, I'm like, hey, let's, like I said to her, let's take things slow, work things out. We don't got to get into this whole, relationship thing soon. So I said to her, let's, in terms of intimacy, since we're not intimate, let's have some type of, maybe, 10 minutes of just hugging, kissing, just trying to build that, what do you call it, that intimacy back, right? And, she wouldn't give me an answer. She we'll see, I'll think about it, we'll have such and such. So I fell asleep because I was tired, like I said, and I came in to the bedroom, and then she came in afterwards. Immediately as she came into the bedroom, the police siren started going off. And immediately she just got really cold, got in the bed, and she's like, good night. Okay? So that's what I got to deal with. So, but anyway, I at times like this where I'm just like, okay, you know what? I need to take a step back and start going back home. And then she wants to get angry, right? And I'm just like, listen, you can't expect me to be here, go through all of this, right? And just take it like it's like, come on. And then when I ask her, I'm like, hey, are you seeing anybody? She's like, no. And then I find out that, yeah, she's talking to other people. Okay? And I'm like, again, proof to me that she just can't be honest. And again, but there's that hope, because I'm so stuck on, trying to hold this family together, this black family who these people are trying to tear apart, who it's hard. It's hard. And sometimes I feel like giving up. You know what I'm saying? But then I look at my kids, I look at her, I'm like, listen, I can't give up on them. And maybe, I may have to, but at this point, I can't do that as of yet. So until I get to that point, then I guess I keep going through this stuff. Okay? All right. So let's go to the video. Okay, let's go to the video. You know, this is my favorite part. And okay, there we go. So this was Saturday. I remember, was it Thursday? We had got into, you know, a little argument. It wasn't anything serious. It was just the fact, like I said, the whole, you know, the whole intimacy part. Because I noticed that when she come to bed, she'll sleep. I'll sleep on one side, sleep on the other side. She's facing me. Her knees are in the middle of the bed to try to keep me away. You know, because sometimes I'm sleeping, I'll roll over and I give her a hug and stuff like that. It's something I do when I'm sleeping, right? And then I start noticing that, you know, she does it when she's not on her period, but when she's on her period, all of a sudden she doesn't do that. All of a sudden now she turns around, and you know, when I'm sleeping, I kind of move over and spoon her with my arms around her and such, right? So I started noticing this pattern, and you know, last night again gave me confirmation again, right? So I'm like, okay, I see the pattern. Okay, it's happened so many times that, you know, I can see this is something that's purposely done. Okay, and so anyway, so we got into a little argument about this. I said to her, listen, I'm not going to keep trying to, you know, keep, you know, trying to work on this if you're not. You said to me, you'll try, and then 2 or 3 days later, you go back to being the same way. So I said to her, I'm not going to continue to do this if you continue to do that also. Because, you know, if we're working things out, I'm working on myself, I'm working on our issue, you have to work on yourself, and you have to work on our issue also. It can't just me doing all the work while you think that there's nothing wrong with you, and that, oh, I should conform or concede to your demands, but you're not even going to conform or concede. I'm not even making a demand, okay? But, you know what I'm saying? You're not even willing to compromise. Not even just a little. So we got to the little thing, and then we were taking the kids to the Big Apple Circus. So we were walking by this church. She's walking with the kids. I'm walking behind her. I didn't have my cane, so I had to walk very slow. And we got by the church, and she's walking, and then she does this as she's walking by the church with her arms out, you know, like Jesus Christ on the cross. You know, I mean, you know, she believe in that stuff. I don't. You know what I'm saying? So when she did that in front of me, I'm like, okay, you know what? I have to record this. So I started recording. Okay? So check this out. Okay. You hear the church bell ringing. So now you see, as we're walking, you see these two young ladies walking towards us, right? And you'll see one sticking her finger in her ears. You see what she's doing? She's twisting her fingers in her ears, right? And then she's looking at me, and then she looks at Pam, and then she looks at me. You can see her eyes fixated towards me, right? Again, they'll use Pam as some sort of to accuse me of whatever, or some sort of witness or what have you, right? So now here comes the other phase. You see the guy with the bicycle. He comes, acts like he's going into the store, but he's not going to go into the store. Now watch what he's going to do. All right? So he stops. He looks at me, right? Then he turns. He looks at Pam as she's walking by, and then start looking at my kids. Because you see his eyes goes downwards. Okay? Then you'll see him again. And now he comes and he stares at me now. And you see, and this, they do the staring campaign, right? And so I have to again turn to get his picture, right? To get him on camera. Okay? So let's take a good look at him. Let me see if I can adjust this to where I can get at least a decent the light in the background makes it very hard. Usually when you have a light source behind you in your photography, it causes what you call a silhouette. So the darkening of the object in front of that light source. So without a flash, and I was video recording, so there's no flash. So anyway, okay. Okay, and so here, let's see here, this guy across the street. And this is what they'll do whenever we get into an argument. They, because they have conditioned me and trained me to like leave, give her back her keys and everything like that. But I started noticing that, so I stopped doing that. So I said, okay, this is what they. So I stopped doing that. So now you'll see this guy comes up. He has the keys in his hand and he's looking at his nails, and then he starts showing me his keys, right? Because he's just walking, right? So there's no reason for him to take his keys out because he's not anywhere close near his house because it's just businesses, right? So this is again, this is what they do, right? Okay, I'm going to pause the video here because I just want to, but I've already explained, so you guys can see and you guys know, right? So now let's. This is Monday after I came out from the Social Security office to get my medical exam done. And I get on the bus, and this woman here now, she started doing all these hand signals in front of me. She has her phone up, you know, so I started recording her. Okay. And then you'll see how she, when TIs, we talk about cell phone targeting. This is one of the things that they do. So you'll see she turns her cell phone towards me so I can see whatever it is that's on her screen. I wasn't really looking, but you can see her here. And then she, starts touching her ears. Okay. And now she does the 5 fingers, palm fixation, with her palm facing towards me. Okay. And then she used her middle finger. You see that? Okay, then she touches her nose. And so again, I had turned the camera because you see the guy that was walking, he was doing hand signals outside. Okay, so now she goes back, palm fixation. Use of the forefinger. Okay. And again, she's turned the phone around so I can see. Okay. Now, to anybody who's not a TI who's looking at this might not see anything wrong with this, but I want you to listen to what I have to say. Okay? Clearly, you can see her turn the phone around so that I can see whatever it is that was on the screen. Then on top of that, you'll see her extend, and again, I'm not trying to use the palm fixation drill on anyone, but I need to show this as an example. So if you're a TI, you're not comfortable, please look away. Then she does this, right? I'm sorry, that's the green screen software, so it's kind of like, okay, so there you go. So then she does this, hold up her hands in front of me. Then she takes her middle finger and start counting her fingers. Right? You guys saw that. Come on. Seriously. Do you see people doing that on the train on a daily basis? Huh? Or when you watch my video, you see people doing that to me? Okay? There's a difference. Not also do I study this stuff, but I study human behavior too. From my own experience. From engaging with these people on a daily basis. From how I am as a human being. From what I remember people doing. Like, for example, people don't just walk around the street, hands behind their back, palm open, wide, multiple people, okay, one after the next, doing the same thing repeatedly. When this stuff is being done, is happening, it is a psychological conditioning process being done. Okay? That's it. To condition someone, you need to do things repeatedly. Okay? And that's what's happening here. So, I think that's it for the video. As you can see, the background behind me, I did a speech in my public speaking class on the historical origin of Christianity. And let's just say that a lot of these young Christian students was not too happy, which is, I'm not laughing at that, but it's kind of funny because they've been so indoctrinated with their young mind that it erases all critical thinking, and the ability to go and do research is hampered. So I kind of did the speech on that just to spark something within their mind, just to show them, so when they talk about the birthplace of Jesus, right? No one knows where exactly Jesus was born. And then I talk about the birthplace of Heru, or Horus, right? And then actually show the manger or building or cave in which Heru was born, right? Even though Heru himself was not a real person, but the Egyptians, again, this is where this is Egyptian spirituality, right? Where Heru, meaning the sun, represented in the human and falcon form. So you see Heru, he has a falcon head, but the rest of his body is in human form with the sun disk above his head, right? And again, that's where you see in every religion after that, or every spiritual belief system after that, now use the concept of the sun disk, either on the head or behind the head, even including Christianity, where you have pictures of Jesus with the sun behind his head. And the sun is not S-O-N, but the sun is S-U-N, because our Egyptian ancestors, they were sun worshippers, they were moon worshippers, they were worshippers of the earth, they were worshippers of nature, not man, nature. And in nature, they gave human aspect, right? And in pictorial form, the Meduneta, which was changed to the hieroglyphics, they show, right, the representation of the sun, the moon, the air, in the form of the deities, right? And I'm not going to say God and Goddess, because that's German. That's not ancient Egyptian wording, okay? So, yeah, so I gave a speech about that. Very interesting. The professor was like, wow, fascinated. She was like, and this was substitute professor. She was like, where are your sources? And I said, it's in my outline. And she was like, I got to research this. It's very fascinating. But, she's in the education section, so her mind is very open to learn. And I'm glad I was able to spark something within her to where she would want to go and do the research herself on this stuff. So anyway, that's it for the video. I will see you guys on the next video. Okay, you guys have a great day, and keep your head up, stay strong, keep exposing. Do not become silenced. Do not let them bully you into silence. Keep speaking out about what's being done. Fight for your rights as well as others. Okay? And keep holding on to your core belief. Right? Okay? So, I'll see you guys in the next one.